In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, February 7th, here on the peninsula. South Korea's current account logs a surplus of over $7.4 billion in December last year on the back of stronger exports to hover in positive territory for 8 months in a row. And South Korea looks to export 10 batteries of a mid-range, medium-altitude interception system to Saudi Arabia as part of a deal sealed last November and disclosed this week following a broader defense MOU penned by the two countries. Meanwhile, the Yoon administration is expanding the country's medical school enrollment quota by 2% each year starting in the year 2025 as part of efforts to ease its shortage of physicians. Korea ended the year 2023 with its current account in positive territory amid greater shipments of cars and chips overseas. Our economics correspondent An Sung-jin starts us off.
South Korea's current account balance for December last year saw a surplus yet again on the back of strong exports. According to preliminary data released by the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the current account saw a monthly surplus for the 8th consecutive month, with the surplus for December standing at $7.41 billion. This is mostly due to improving exports, which grew 5% compared to a year earlier as the value of semiconductor exports jumped. Auto exports also continued their upward trend with an on-year increase of 19.2%. Though exports to EU and China dropped, shipments to US and Southeast Asia were both up.
As demand for electric vehicles dropped, automobile and mechanical product exports to the EU fell. Exports to China declined as manufacturing plants moved to Vietnam. With investment in batteries increasing in the US, exports to the US are expected to rise.
The strong performance of exports and the falling imports led the goods account to also see a surplus of $8 billion in December. The services account, which tracks the inflow and outflow of business services, tourism, and transportation, posted a $2.54 billion deficit due to fewer tourists from Japan. For the year 2023 as a whole, the current account surplus stood at $35.49 billion, nearly $10 billion higher than the year before. The official noted that the positive trend will continue next year.
In 2024, the expected current account surplus is $49 billion, and it is $59 billion in 2025 as the IT industry recovers and maintains its strong performance.
An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And rebounding chip exports have kept at bay the potential economic repercussions of sluggish domestic consumption. Now, this is according to the Korea Development Institute on this Wednesday in a report that showed overseas semiconductor shipments soared more than 56% on year last month. In contrast, inflation and interest rates kept a lid on domestic demand for goods and services. The think tank also warned that hostilities in the Middle East remain a high risk factor, given its possible impact on global oil prices. In other news, the U.S. International Trade Commission is ending an anti-dumping duty probe into imports of tin mill products from South Korea. The Commission on Tuesday announced the imports seen as being sold at less than fair value in the U.S. market are negligible and do not injure the U.S. industry. Tin mill products are steel products used for food packaging or for storage. Last month, the Commerce Department claimed imports of tin mill products from South Korea, China, Canada, and Germany were being dumped into the U.S. market at unfair prices. Details of an arms deal between South Korea and Saudi Arabia that was sealed last November were disclosed earlier this week as the two countries penned a memorandum of understanding to bolster defense partnership on the sidelines of the World Defense Show in Riyadh. Our Ioni reports.
South Korea has announced a deal to export to Saudi Arabia 10 M-SAM-2 mid-range surface-to-air missile batteries. According to Seoul's Defense Ministry on Tuesday, the deal, worth some 4.2 trillion Korean won, or $3.2 billion was sealed last November between South Korean defense firm LIG Next-1 and the Saudi Arabian Defense Ministry. The M-SAM-2, known locally as Cheongbuk-2 missiles, are a core weapon system of Korea air and missile defense. The so-called Korean Patriot uses hit-to-kill missiles capable of intercepting incoming missiles at an altitude of 30 to 40 kilometers. The advanced technology system includes simultaneous engagement of multiple targets, high mobility with canard and side jet thrusters, and direct targeting with a power-enhancing warhead. This is LIG Next One's second export deal, as it previously signed the deal with the United Arab Emirates in 2022. Tuesday's announcement comes as South Korea and Saudi Arabia have agreed to further strengthen their defense cooperation. As part of this week's visit to the Middle East, South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik met with Saudi Arabia's Defense Minister on Sunday in Riyadh. The two sides signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a joint committee to cooperate in research and weapons development in the mid to long term. On Tuesday, Shin visited Qatar and signed an MOU on furthering the two countries' defense and arms cooperation in light of the 50th anniversary of their diplomatic relations this year. Lee Eun-hee, Arirang News.
And Korea plans to set aside over $10 billion as low-interest loans to finance projects in developing countries centered on climate change, digital transition and public health by the year 2026. According to the Finance Ministry, this year, some $3.4 billion worth of undertakings will be supported under the Economic Development Cooperation Fund, followed by another $3.4 billion next year, and over $3.5 billion in 2026. A large portion of the fund, between 60% to 70%, will be allocated for projects in Asia and the remaining for those in Africa. Korea also plans to support reconstruction efforts worth $2.1 billion in Ukraine. Now, it's no secret that Korea is battling the world's lowest birth rate. So what is the public saying? Our Park Gon-woo was out and about.
South Korea is quickly becoming known for its aging population, with the number of new births recorded on a downward trend. According to data from Statistics Korea, the total fertility rate in 2022 was 0.78. Figures for 2023 are set to be released at the end of February, and experts say that figure could fall even further. But what's behind these dwindling numbers? I went out on the streets of Seoul to find out why people are reluctant to have kids.
The parents usually have some big pressure, good school, good nursery, good kindergartens, so education fee, and the others is really, really expensive.
With higher prices, sufficient earnings are needed to take care of a child.
Housing issues need to be solved, and also education fees.
Along with the expense of having kids, some pointed to the difficulty associated with raising children and working at the same time. The importance of alone time by young adults is seen as another factor driving the number of births down. In response, the government introduced several policies this year, including an increase in financial support to encourage people to have more kids. But many young adults I spoke to said they wouldn't think too differently despite strengthening governmental support.
Several policies that can actually help people to settle down are needed more than monetary support.
People also spoke about the need for better conditions for parents returning to work after a child is born. One expert suggested ways to encourage people to have children.
Among OECD nations, Korea is on the upper rankings of working hours, so realistically, parents can't concentrate on raising kids, even if they have them. Working hours need to be shorter.
And he said more companies will need to allow people to use parental leaves more flexibly. With the government's target of raising the total fertility rate to 1 birth per woman, the Presidential Committee on Aging Society and Population Policy also said it will be releasing a comprehensive plan, possibly in March, to solve issues related to the country's low birth and fertility rate. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The government is expanding the medical school enrollment quota by over 50% annually starting next year to ease the nation's shortage of physicians. Our Lee Si-hoo reports.
Beginning next year, the South Korean government is increasing the total enrollment quota for the country's medical schools by 2,000 per year. This means a total of 5,058 students will be entering med schools every year, a drastic hike from the quota of 3,058 that's been frozen since 2006. All this comes as South Korea aims to provide quality healthcare for all, especially for those in rural areas and those in need of essential care.
급속한 고령화와 보건산업 수요에 대응할 의료 인력까지 포함하면 2035년까지 약 1만 5천 명의 의사가 더 필요한 것으로 추산되고 있습니다. 국민의 건강과 생명을 지키기 위해 의사 인력 확대는 더 이상 늦출 수 없는 시대적 과제입니다.
Following President Yoon's comments on Tuesday, Health Minister Jo Kyu-hong, speaking at a ministry briefing, reiterated the reason for the hike.
2,000 more medical students a year would mean as many as 10,000 doctors entering the workforce after training between 2031 and 2035.
Cho said that while this does not exactly meet the estimated demand, the government will continue to periodically evaluate and manage supply and demand. In the process, the government will take into consideration relevant factors such as the advancement of healthcare technology, the aging population, and any future pandemic situations. Meanwhile, the health ministry has vowed that it will work to build a robust regional healthcare system by making sure that a certain percentage of the student body of medical schools outside of the capital area is filled by students from the local region. The specific size of the enrollment by school will be announced later after a review and discussion with the Education Ministry. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the response to the government's plan from the medical sector has been mixed, with most doctors condemning it, but nurses commending it. Our Song Yoo-jin has details.
The medical school quota increase has been a topic of heated debate here in South Korea. The government has been pushing for an expansion to address the shortage of doctors in a country where there are only 2.6 physicians per 1,000 people, far below the OECD average of 3.7. However, this proposal has triggered strong opposition from many doctors in the country. At an emergency press conference on Tuesday, the Korean Medical Association warned of a nationwide strike if the government unilaterally proceeds with the decision to raise the quota.
This has the potential to stir up issues in our national health insurance system, which is on track to turn into a deficit this year and is anticipated to experience a decrease in accumulated funds. There are also concerns about the increase in social costs and the risk of our natural sciences education taking a hit, a critical field in enhancing Korea's competitiveness.
The association, consisting of around 140,000 doctors and medical students, has been critical of the government's plan, arguing that fundamental measures should come first. This includes enhancing the working environment for physicians through better pay or exploring methods to better allocate them so that certain areas of medicine do not experience a lack of doctors. In response, the Korean Health and Medical Workers Union, made up of nurses, caregivers, and healthcare workers, issued a press release dismissing the KMA's actions as an unjustifiable coercion. The union says increasing the number of doctors is supported by the majority of the general public, as it can prevent illegal medical practices and is crucial to enhancing the overall quality of medical services. It also challenged the KMA, calling the government's decision unilateral, emphasizing that the Ministry of Health and Welfare has engaged in dozens of meetings and consultations with the association. If a strike does happen, the Health Ministry has warned of countermeasures, such as an immediate return to work order. Those who do not comply may face a license suspension of up to a year, imprisonment for a maximum of 3 years, or a fine up to 30 million Korean won, which is around $22,500 US. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Government food rations and wages for work done are being denied to many North Koreans, fueling a greater sense of public discontent. Now, this assessment by Seoul's Unification Ministry is based on information shared by over 6,000 defectors. Our correspondent Kim Jung-shil has more.
An extensive record of the voices of people who have left North Korea creates a stark image. Unlike what people have been led to believe, the reality of the lives of North Koreans under the regime may have been much harsher than imagined. On Tuesday, the government here released a comprehensive report on the North's economy and its society at large. The report is based on a trove of information that had been kept confidential until now. This is a report that holds the voices of 6,351 North Korean defectors. The Ministry of Unification says this will give valuable insight into understanding the reality of the regime that's closed and isolated from the world. Research experts asked each defector more than 1,100 questions on a one-on-one basis. According to the report, 72.2% said they had not received any food rations from the state once Kim Jong-un became the leader of the North. More than 50% said they received neither food rations nor wages in exchange for work. The ministry said this indicates the regime has been exploiting people by stressing passion and loyalty without paying wages. However, the defectors said most North Korean residents were now having 3 meals a day instead of 2.
Some assessed that the lives of North Koreans had improved, with many buildings being built in Pyongyang ever since Kim Jong-un came to power. But based on our research, this is a mere optical illusion, and the lives of the residents have actually become harsher.
The report said that bribery has doubled since Kim took power, with most residents believing that the gap between the rich and poor in the north has widened. 56.3% of those questioned said they felt negatively about the change of leadership in the north. The ministry gave extensive data in the form of numbers, which it hopes will allow the public and the international community to get a better understanding of the regime's reality. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In other news, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il spoke for the first time with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on phone on Tuesday. Among the issues addressed during the 15-minute talk were supply chain-related matters and the importance of bilateral efforts for progress. Minister Cho also accepted an invitation to Beijing from Wang Yi, promising to set a date convenient for all. With regard to North Korea, Minister Cho called for a constructive role by Beijing to bring Pyongyang back to dialogue, while sharing concern over the forced return of North Korean defectors back home. Over in the Middle East, peace negotiators claim Hamas has shared a largely favorable response to the latest framework for truce in return for hostages. Our Lee Sing-jae has the latest.
Qatar says Hamas has given a generally positive response to a proposed truce deal with Israel, as the militant group reiterated its call for an end to the Israeli assault on Gaza. According to Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani, Hamas had a positive response to the proposed deal being brokered by the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, but did not provide further details. Hamas said in a statement that its leadership had reviewed the ceasefire deal with a positive spirit, including details of securing relief and shelter, reconstruction, the lifting of a 17-year-old crippling siege, and the completion of the prisoner exchange process. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is once again in the Middle East, will meet with Israeli officials and discuss the proposed truce deal. Meanwhile, Israel Defense Forces spokesman Daniel Hagari said Tuesday that more than $150 million were transferred from Iran to the militant group, adding the funds were utilized by Hamas to sustain its operations underground. Hagari also underscored the implications of Iran's support for terrorism, adding it may extend beyond the Middle East region. Updating on the Israeli hostages held by Hamas, the spokesman said that 31 of the hostages held in Gaza are confirmed to have died. Israel has said 136 hostages are still being held in Gaza. With the armed conflict between Israel and Hamas now spanning 4 months, the UN says Israel's evacuation orders in the Gaza Strip now cover 2/3 of the territory. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said Tuesday that more than half of Gaza's population is now crammed into the town of Rafah on the border with Egypt and surrounding areas. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Qatar, Team Korea lost to Jordan by 2-0 during Tuesday's Asian Cup semi-final match. Now, Jordan's Yazan Al-Naimat and Musa Al-Tamari each found the net in the second half, taking their team to its first ever Asian Cup final. Korea, for its part, had been hoping to win its first Asian Cup title in 64 years. Jordan will now face Iran or defending champion Qatar in the final match this coming weekend.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In the US, a federal appeals panel unanimously ruled that former President Donald Trump does not have presidential immunity in his 2020 election interference case. The appeals court's decision rejects the former president's claims that he is immune from the related criminal charges and leaves Trump open to prosecution. Trump has been charged with conspiracy to overturn President Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election and with committing fraud in an attempt to remain in office. In January 2021, a mob of Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. in an effort to overturn his election defeat. The case's trial was initially scheduled for March 4th, but has been postponed until Trump's immunity claim plays out. In the UK, King Charles was seen in public for the first time on Tuesday since it was made public that he was suffering from cancer. Charles was seen waving and smiling to passers-by in a car with Queen Camilla while on a short drive from his home, Clarence House in central London, to Buckingham Palace on Tuesday afternoon. It is believed that Charles and Camilla left on board the royal household helicopter later that day, departing for Sandringham Estate. Buckingham Palace announced on Monday that the 75-year-old king had been diagnosed with a form of cancer during his recent treatment of a benign enlarged prostate. In Hong Kong, the chief executive of the region, John Lee, has publicly complained about football superstar Lionel Messi's failure to play in a match between Inter Miami and a local team. Speaking Tuesday, Lee demanded that organizers explain why Messi could not play, saying the Hong Kong government was disappointed that a detailed explanation was not provided promptly. The game's organizer, Tatler Asia CEO Michel Lamounière, apologized at press conference on Monday, saying the star players will play if they are fit. Fans were left disappointed at the sold-out Hong Kong stadium on Sunday, as star player Messi sat on the bench as Inter Miami beat a Hong Kong 11 4-1. Inter Miami was booed off the field by some 38,000 spectators, with fans later demanding refunds. To Japan now, where this year's Miss Japan beauty pageant winner renounced her title after the magazine revealed she had an affair with a married man. Ukraine-born Karolina Shino, who was crowned Miss Japan in January, renounced her crown and resigned from a modeling agency after the weekly Bunshin magazine reported a relationship with a married doctor. Initially, Shino claimed that she did not know he was married, but later she said she was aware of her partner's status and that he had a family. Shino has apologized on social media, as well as to the man's partner and his family. Miss Japan organizers said Tuesday that following Shino's renunciation, the 2024 winner spot will remain empty. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Late winter weather continues today with afternoon temperatures forecast to go up similar to yesterday. Then we'll end this week's work week tomorrow with warmer than average temperatures in most places. Some inland regions will have high levels of ultrafine dust, and more dust will blow in overnight, boosting dust levels to bad levels. Meanwhile, Gangwon-do province will see less than 1 centimeter of snowfall. Central regions in Gyeongsang-pukdo could see snow flurries passing by today. Afternoon highs are going up near seasonal norms, Seoul topping out at 4 degrees, Busan at 9 degrees Celsius this afternoon with a glimpse of sunshine. But Jeollado and nearby areas including Gwangju will be under much brighter skies all day today. The weather should be generous for this Seollal holiday weekend under fairly sunny skies, but with freezing morning temperatures. Then we'll get one step closer to spring after the Lunar New Year holiday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. And those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. We return with our panel session in a few minutes, so do stay with us.